Thank you for staying with us. Nigerians were taken aback when fuel subsidy was removed on the 29th of May by President Bola Tinubu. Since then, petrol prices doubled, causing a ripple effect on transportation and then food items. Many residents have had to pay double for food items like pepper, yam, rice, bread, amongst others. Some even go as far as cutting off some food to survive. Now, the National Bureau of Statistics have also likened the fuel subsidy removal to the rise in consumer price index, which went from 22.41% in May to 22.79% in June. The index, which measures how the prices of goods and services change over time, has affected the purchasing power of Nigerians, thereby reducing their standard of living. Joining us via Zoom is the Director, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Dr. Yusuf, good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Yes, just when Nigerians were trying to get, settled with their current realities, yesterday there was an increase in the pump price of fuel. And the NNPCL is saying market forces are responsible for this recent hike. And in fact, if you look through the papers this morning, it's talking about how Nigerians are groaning with this current realities and the new hiking price. Talk to us from your point of view, what you make of all that is going on with regards to this hike especially. Let's begin from there.
Well, the hike in petrol price came to many of us and to many Nigerians as a very big surprise, especially because Nigerians are yet to recover even from the initial or the previous hike in price, which was quite significant. Talking of a hike in price of close to 200%. And of course, we have seen the impact of that on inflation, cost of living, cost of production, profit margins, sales by companies. All of these things have been taking a very serious negative trend as a result of the hike in pump price. So when this now came, it was such a very big shock, to many Nigerians, because the conversation or the discussion and the pronouncements from government all along up until yesterday was that palliative was going to be delivered to address the shocks and the pains that the fuel subsidy removal had inflicted on the citizens. So citizens were actually looking forward to these palliatives, which are yet to come. Of course, there have been some conversation around it. Only for this new hike to hit the citizens. What I would say is that in economic management, we need to take into account and manage very, very properly the social consequences of policy. Because everything is not about pure economics or pure, concept of market forces. Yes, market forces is good, but we need to define boundaries. That is why in all economies, even in the best of market economies, there are what you call intervention in the market, the market environment, so that you don't go to the extreme, so that you begin to inflict, undue pains on the citizens. Because at this point, and from what you have also read in the papers, the pains are becoming unbearable. So we need to take that into account. And I think government should define a threshold above which government has to intervene and not allow fuel price to go beyond. Market forces or no market forces. Government is there to moderate the way things are and the impact of things on citizens. So that is what I expected. We cannot just surrender the economy entirely to market forces. No. And it's even more shocking that the issues of increase is being led by a state-owned enterprise, which is the NNPC. How must NNPC be the one to be providing leadership in this kind of thing? There has to be a social angle to the way even the NNPC also manages it until we get to a point where things can properly stabilize. Oil price is already at $80 per barrel. Suppose it goes to 90. Are we going to come back now and still be increasing fuel price? We need to define a threshold, above which the government has to intervene. It has to happen with fuel. It is so important because unlike in other advanced economies, transportation in Nigeria is about 90% dependent on road transportation. And road transportation is driven largely by petrol. That is the difference between Nigeria and many of these other economies. And we need to reckon with these peculiarities as we progress, as we move forward with all these economic reforms.
Right. Now, this matter of market forces, we need you to shed more light on it, because even the NMPCL chair said that these prices at some point could reduce and at other points could, increase, and that is what the market forces does. So help us better understand, because some viewers do not really understand when we hear this words market forces are determining, and at what point should government come in to determine that at this point market forces cannot go beyond this limit, talking about regulating.
Now, the whole idea of market forces is to allow, first of all, to allow more players to come into the arena. In other words, you want the private sector to lead the way in terms of the provision of a particular product or service. And the whole idea is to ensure that we have more players, we have more competition, and the prices will be determined by the cost of each of the players, and there will be no interference in terms of fixing the price. That is the whole essence of these market forces. But again, it depends on the kind of product you are dealing with. This is a socially sensitive product, and we need to make a distinction. When you are dealing with a socially sensitive product, you have to manage the market forces in such a way that once you get to a particular threshold, government should step in to ensure that the prices don't go beyond that, no matter what it will cost. I'm not saying we should go back to the regime of subsidy, which was so damaging, from what we have seen. But having substantially removed the subsidy, government should define a threshold. Look at America, for instance. When you talk about the principle of market
subsidy regime, how should government come in?
No, the way, yes, that's the point I'm making. I was citing an example of America. America is full-blown market economy. Market forces determine practically everything. But when it comes to energy prices, once the prices are getting above a particular threshold, what they do, first, they reduce and possibly remove taxes on all energy products. That is one. Secondly, they have reserves of some of this petroleum, which they release to the economy so that the prices will be moderated when the prices get to a particular threshold. The same thing should happen here. Government, and particularly those people who are in charge of political leadership, because NNPC is not part of the political leadership. It didn't help them to campaign. It didn't know what it took for the government to be able to garner votes to get there. The political leadership should weigh in on this, that once this price gets to this particular threshold, you have to hold on it. Have engagement with the stakeholders in the sector and agree on how to cushion and to prevent the price from going further. The beauty of what has happened so far is that government has made significant gains and savings from this subsidy. Imagine moving from 195 to over 500. to all the leakages, corruption, and a lot of savings have been made. A lot of savings have also been made from the convergence of exchange rates. So we have some buffer, we have some fiscal space to absorb some. So once it's getting above 500, for strategic and political reasons, government should step in. Talk to NNPC, talk to the players. If the government needs to make up for the difference, government should do so. We are not saying that we don't want to see subsidy at all. There's no economy that runs that way. Go to the EU, go to US. They subsidize food. They subsidize transportation. They subsidize their health services. That is the way to manage this.
All right.
So that you don't create social tension.
All right. If you could just hold the thought.
That is what is happening now.
Right. If you could just hold the thought, we need to move over to our senior anchor, Michael Koche, who is out there to see the situation on the ground with regards to this current increase in the price of petrol, how motorists are reacting to this development. Mike, are you there? Could you unmute yourself? Then we can hear you.
Yes.
Right, right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Tell us what's going on. What did you find on the streets?
Yeah, very good. Very good. So I am here at Alakbere, and I am standing on the street now. You can see right behind me is one of the filling stations on Alakbere. On this lane, you will find about 5 to 6 filling stations on this line, going from just behind me on that road there is the way to the island. This road used to be very, very jammed with traffic on a daily basis, but you can see right behind me that so many cars have left the road. But the point there is we're talking about fuel this morning. Nigerians yesterday got the news of the increase in pump price of petrol, but surprisingly, the filling station behind me and some of the major marketers are selling at 570 this morning. However, we heard of some other filling station, independent petroleum marketers that are selling at over 600, 620, 615, 630, and even some beyond from some of the reports we got this morning. Some filling stations outside of Lagos or even outside of the southwest of Nigeria sell even up to almost 700 as at this morning. So one would expect, because yesterday we saw that there were some queues on some filling stations when the announcement came in. But as you can see right behind me, you have to put it so you can see, the queues have eased up and we don't have filling stations. We've seen some of the filling stations on our way here, and there are no queues this morning. But we've seen that when it comes to the price, like the GMD of NNPC has said, the market forces are working on the prices, so you may not find a 100% exclusive uniform price from one filling station to another, but you're going to see, change in price slightly marginally here and there. So that's what we have this morning. But on the roads, the queues, the traffic is very light this morning going to Victoria Island, maybe partly because of the fuel situation as it is. Veronica.
Right. Were you able to speak with perhaps persons who were waiting to take a commercial vehicle, like engage a commercial transportation services, to know what their take was with regards to this new increment and how the prices have changed for them?
A lot of persons, the persons I spoke to this morning, in fact, there was a driver I spoke with, I chatted with him and all of that. He was saying that, well, since yesterday, that he was expecting that as at this morning, he was going to buy fuel. That he had not worked really, and then the price changed. So he was telling me how he is going to feed his family and all of that. But the point there is, they are talking about the cost of transportation, the cost of fueling their vehicles, and the cost of doing business generally. And they have said that the government should take a look into this. They also talked about the issue of the palliatives that we have been talking about. The federal government has talked about the issue of giving 8,000 naira as palliative to about 12 million Nigerians. Now, yesterday we heard that the president has called for the review of that amount that is given or that was stipulated to be given to about 12 million Nigerians. How that is going to work out, we're still waiting for the government to give us that. So they are saying that government has to really do something. Some of them talked about the issue of Dangote refinery working right away so that there can be adequate fuel that will bring down the challenge of the cost of prices of petroleum, so that when there is adequate supply, it will reduce demand and then the prices can come down. That is what they are talking about this morning. So everyone is really concerned about how the costs, this cost of fuel is impacting every single business as of today.
Indeed, Mike. And that's the conversation we will continue with Dr. Muda Yusuf, who has been speaking with us on this. But thank you, Mike, for bringing us details from out there, feeling the pulse of Nigerians, how it is they are taking this matter of the fuel price increase. Dr. Yusuf, let me come back to you. Now, I don't know if you heard our senior anchor, Mike Okwache, talking to us about how Nigerians are reacting to this increase in the price of petrol. Some even saying that they do not know how they'll feed their families. And just yesterday, we're talking about the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics bringing us details, figures about the recent increase in inflation, the percentage increase. And now with this hike that we got yesterday, some are even saying that this 22.79% does not really reflect the true picture of what is going on. Now with this fuel price increase, I wonder how you see this, affecting the numbers with regards to the consumer index at 22.7%, 7-year high ever that we have recorded, where we are headed with regards to these figures, talking about inflation.
Well, first of all, let me just emphasize once again that economic policies must be very sensitive to social conditions. No economic ideology or economic principle is absolute. In any economic system, there's always a room for intervention. Now, once things are getting out of hand, government should intervene to ensure social stability, to ensure political stability. Those things are very important. Now, coming back to the issue of the inflation and all of that, of course, the figures that was released by NBS didn't quite reflect the reality that the citizens are facing. Perhaps, maybe it's a question of the methodology. Perhaps, maybe it's a question of sampling. Perhaps, maybe it's a question of the basket of goods that are used for the computation of this inflation. Because since the announcement of this fuel subsidy removal, many prices have moved from close to 30 to 50%, some to 100% in the last 1 month. I mean, talk to people who go to market, particularly to buy food items, or people who take public transportation. So when we come up with inflation of an increase between last month, between May and June, we are talking just about less than 1%. In June, we are talking of 22.79. In May, it was 22.41. The reality on the ground is far, far more than that. So it is now with this, the situation will even get worse. Because the impact of transportation on a whole lot of things is always very, very significant and very profound. And I'm saying this because we are not like all these other advanced economies where there are other means of transportation. 90% of movement around within the country is by road. Most of the trucks are using diesel. Happily, I mean, diesel price has come down slightly. to over 600. But many of the other commuters are running on PMS. So the economy, the prices are so sensitive to the movement in PMS. Of course, there was need to remove the subsidy. But we need to define boundaries so that we don't upset social stability. Once we get to a particular threshold, if we need to intervene, if we need to even provide some subsidy, so be it. Energy subsidy is not entirely so bad. So we don't have to go to the extreme of this market forces. I'm an economist. I believe in a market-led economy. But I also believe that there is need for government intervention once things are getting to the extreme. So the managers of the economy, the political leadership, should be sensitive to all these social conditions. Once we are getting beyond the particular threshold, in order to avoid all these problems, we intervene. The same thing should happen to the foreign exchange market. Yes, I'm one of the leading advocates of floating the currency and all of that. But in order to also avoid volatility and things getting completely out of hand, we should define a threshold beyond which we should ensure that the exchange rate don't go beyond. If it's going beyond that, the CBN has a responsibility to intervene, to ensure to reduce the volatility and ensure some stability. All of these things are very critical to investors' confidence. Because if you don't build that confidence, either among the citizens or among the investors, the economy will be worse for it. So we need to ensure a balance between economic considerations, commercial considerations, and social considerations. There should be a balance in all of this. And that is what I think. That is what I think going forward around all of these issues.
Right. The president yesterday asked that the palliatives, he had mentioned that the palliatives that the government would give Nigerians would reflect the current realities, and so asked for a review of the 8,000 Naira conditional cash transfer that was initially planned with regards to the 500 billion Naira that was supposed to be, earmarked for the 12 million poorest of the poor Nigerians. I am wondering what you expect with regards to this matter of palliatives that the government intends to give to Nigerians. Yes, he has said that the government should unveil the whole gamut of the palliatives. He has asked that grains be given to farmers across the 36 states of the country. How is that going to cushion the effect of all that we are seeing with regards to the changes the economy is witnessing?
First, we need to identify what the issues are as far as this hardship is concerned. The issues are, first, high cost of food. Second, high cost of transportation. Third, high cost of energy products. Those are the three principal things. So whatever palliative is coming, have to focus on these three areas. I'm not a fan of cash transfers, because cash transfers, particularly in our kind of environment, has a lot of limitations. There are limitations as to the kind of data. There are limitations as to how you can make it inclusive. There are limitations as to interference, even by all manner of forces within the system. There are also a lot of corruption risk. So we should come up with interventions in a way to bring down the price of food. First, although that may not be immediate, that can happen immediately, is to tackle this problem of insecurity, so that we can deal with the food question of domestic food production. That is number one. And I'm happy that the president had declared a state of emergency on food. And in responding to that, tackling insecurity must be number one. Second is to engage the stakeholders in the food sector. What are the fiscal policies that government can put in place to bring down the cost of food? What are your critical inputs? Look at the entire value chain of agriculture. What can we do at the input level? What can we do at the processing level? What can we do at the marketing level? What can we do about storage? What can we do about trade? Because sometimes you can also use trade to modulate some of these conditions. So we need to look at the entire gamut of the value chain. Then on transportation, we engage the transporters. Now, the import duty on buses, for instance, is somewhere around 30 or 35%. We can bring down the import duty. But it is not government that should provide everything. If the import duty reduces, more commercial operators will be able to buy those buses. More companies will be able to buy those buses. More states and local government and will be able to buy those buses on their own. That's another form of intervention. Then we have been talking about this CNG, which NLC president have been talking about. We have to incentivize the conversion to CNG, to the use of gas. If there are any impediments in terms of taxes, in terms of tariffs, on the conversion kits to reduce the cost of conversion, let us waive all those taxes. Let us waive all those import duty, so that the cost of conversion of generator, of vehicles, of trucks to the use of CNG will be much affordable. You know, that can deal with the problem of transportation. Then on this problem of fuel, again, we should have an engagement. We cannot leave the fuel entirely to market forces. It's a socially sensitive product. Of course, we should not go back to the regime of all these very damaging subsidies. But once it is getting to a particular threshold, government should engage the stakeholders and come up with a framework to intervene to ensure that these prices don't go beyond this particular level. Because, I mean, oil price will not remain high forever. Once it comes down to maybe 70 or 60, things will stabilize and it will be easy. Once we're able to move on with our local refinery, Dangote refineries and so on, things will be easy. But for now, that things are so tough, government intervention is very necessary. We cannot just leave the economy and NNPC to be talking to us about market forces. We are dealing with human beings. Economics is a social science. There's a social component of economics. There's a science component of economics. All of these things, we need to blend the two so that we ensure social stability. That is my response to that.
In just one word, if the government does not manage this appropriately, like you mentioned earlier, what are the social consequences that you see might happen?
You can see the feelings. You can see what is happening to the citizens. You can see, I mean, government exists for the purpose of the people.
Right.
Government exists for purpose of welfare. Once we are getting this kind of feedback, we should not allow things to degenerate further. Government needs to intervene. That is the point. I mean, your reporters on the field just reviewed the newspaper headlines. Look at the kind of feedback. It's not good, even for the administration itself.
All right.
That is why we need to balance both social considerations and economic considerations and commercial considerations. There has to be a balance.
Dr. Muda Yusuf, we have to leave this conversation here now. You are the